see what happens here. What could possibly go wrong? Going live in 3, 2, and come on. Oh, there it is. It says you're live. We are now live on the YouTube. Just the Westlake Charter School March of 2021 board meeting. Board President Golick, you have the floor.
Thanks, John. So we are meeting tonight pursuant to Executive Order N29-20, which authorizes local legislative bodies to hold public meetings via teleconference and to make public meetings accessible telephonically or otherwise electronically to all members of the public. Members of the public are encouraged to participate. The instructions are at the bottom of our agenda, but essentially, if you can send or want to comment, send an email to admin@westlakecharter.com. Put this in the subject line, which item you wish to comment on, or if there's no item, just say general. And please limit that to 250 words. There'll be one comment per item, so it's important that you do mark that on your public comment. So with that, Amy, will you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Hope.
Yes.
Sean. Oh. Nancy.
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Thank you. Vasa.
Yes.
Ashley.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
And Jed. Okay, you have a quorum.
Thank you. So I'm going to go first tonight on celebrations. I'm going to, take my presidential powers here and take a moment, and we'll get to a celebration, I promise. But I would like to mark today's date as exactly 1 year from the declaration of the pandemic, and take just a moment to acknowledge the 54,891 people who have passed away due to COVID, and thank all our staff who have risen to the challenge, all our essential workers. I want to celebrate them. I want to celebrate you, Amy, and I think Nancy too, right, worked the clinic today. We're getting it out there. Like, we are so close to going from pandemic to endemic. And I mean, COVID's not going anywhere, but we've all worked together so hard as a community to power through, and we've adapted to change in a way that I never thought possible. And John, I've gotten such an opportunity to see you as a leader and a change maker. And I'm going to get really teary because I've been just thinking about it a lot today, that who knew when we met last March, right? At that point, we were closing for cleaning, and we're going to reopen within 2 weeks. And now it's been a year, and we're finally welcoming kids back to campus on Monday, which I know brings its own set of challenges and anxiety. And there are just as many kids out there who are excited, who are also petrified and aren't sure how they're going to, leave their homes. Like, it's interesting. You get used to it. And then what peer group or my cohort, who's where and what friends will I have? And it's all change. And so I just want to celebrate everyone in this group who has worked so hard to adapt to change over the last 365 days. And I can't imagine us being where we are as a school community without each one of you. So I celebrate all of you tonight. And with that, I will just go in alphabetical order since I had such a hard time. Or actually, I'll go with the agenda order. But I had such a hard time and skipped Nancy, I believe, last meeting. So guess what, Nancy? You're going to be first tonight. And then after Nancy, Josh, and then Michelle.
Thanks, Hope. To piggyback on that, it has been an incredible and emotional year for everyone. Looking at my Facebook memories, I was in Europe, in Paris, 365 days ago, with literally dozens of people reaching out to me at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell me that I need to get home. Including Hope, where she said, I'm at a restaurant, but tell me what I need to do. And I said, I need you to figure out what the travel advisory is. And until then, I will be on the phone waiting on Delta Airlines. Angelique Ashby was messaging me and doing the same thing, directly helping us get home. But who knew? Literally, who knew? But on the flip side of that, today, working with Amy and seeing lots of smiling faces, including John, like when I was able to look up from the computer at one moment, we vaccinated or helped, get 2,000 people vaccinated today. And it was incredible and phenomenal, super emotional, just simply amazing. And I texted Amy earlier and I just said exhausted and dying. So I'm definitely those things. So, but it just is such gratifying, quote unquote work. And I have 3 more clinics that three? Yeah, 3 more that I'm volunteering for. Discovered today that my shift from, that was 7 to 1 is now 7 to 4:30-ish, which is great, because literally 2,000 people are going to get vaccinated each time, and it's just such an incredible experience. So we will get there. So thank you, everyone, who is willing to make it happen.
Thanks, Nancy. So Josh and then Michelle.
I'm just going to piggyback and celebrate community. I love watching the news, and when they show other areas and they say they're going to reopen their schools and this is how they're going to do it. I go, yeah, Natomas already did that. And they go, oh, well, we're going to do a drive-through vaccination clinic and this and that. Yeah, Natomas already did that. And I just find myself saying that more and more and more. And I'm just so proud and happy to be a part of the community and, to represent a school in the community, just filled with pride for who we are as Natomas and what we do. So I wanted to celebrate that.
Thanks, Josh. Michelle, and then Vasa.
On the eve, I guess, of kids returning to school next week, I just want to celebrate all of the hard work and the transition that's making this happen, and the staff, teachers, administration, everybody that's going to make this happen. I've heard a lot of smiling voices, my kids, their friends, all excited about their return, and so I just want to celebrate that. That's huge as we think about 365 days of going through the pandemic so far, and seeing that now our kids are actually getting back in is an amazing thing to look forward to.
Thanks, Michelle. Vasa, and then Ashley.
Some good stuff. Good celebration. This is feeling good right now. It's conference week, so I just want to give a big shout out to all our parents. As we are in this theme of reflecting on the last year and getting ready to turn the corner into a new phase of this journey, our parents, it seemed impossible a year ago when you're saying to families, we got to shut down schools. What are we going to do? And parents have persevered and worked with their kids and their community to find ways to support their kids, and the kids have been crazy successful. And so that's just, I give a big shout out to our parents who continue to work hard and, maintain their jobs and their livelihoods while teaching their kids and being teachers at home every day. And I have so many parents, Carissa Richards probably listening right now, that hear me teaching all day in the background. And they're so supportive, and I think are getting a peek what it's like to be a teacher, and we're getting a peek inside their homes as well. And then I just want to give a shout out, one last little shout out to Amy Wells. Is like the spirit guru right now at Westlake Charter. We're working hard. Teachers are stressed out. She's coming over the mic every hour, pulling raffles out and celebrating teachers. And every time I talk to Amy, you're so positive and upbeat, and I think it's contagious. And you're being your symbolic leadership for our school is powerful. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Vasa. Ashley, and then Shannon.
Yes, Amy, that was amazing. Last week I was recording a book and I was like, oh, pause. Do I edit? Do I keep it in? I should have just let them hear you and all your cheeringness. It was just a funny moment. I have two celebrations. One, I just want to celebrate all of our administrative team, but our wonderful principal, Jen Kayau. I've had several meetings or touch base or conversations with her more this last few weeks than I have gotten to, which made it feel a little bit more like real life, because that's what normally happens. And she's just such a good listener. And she really does lean in and listen and consider perspective. And you see the virtue of her listening. I think she's just like a deep thinker. And so sometimes that virtue comes out a week later or a couple days later. And I appreciate that because I'm a processor too. So my response is always different tomorrow than it is right now. And I just so appreciate her and her listening and her leaning in always. And then my second one is our student support services team. I think that we, 7 years, John, how many years? Did we start our own LEA? Is it 8? Oh my goodness, I stopped counting. We went on this venture to support all students, and I have been doing a lot of reflection of where we were and where we've come and where we are now. And I just really think we have one of the most supportive, amazing programs out there. I got to sit down with the Student Support Services team to plan for students who need a little more when they come back on campus, and to see the families and see how blown away they are and how supported they feel. I don't know that all the families out there know all the nitty gritty that is involved to make sure every explorer is successful, and that team is just amazing. So I had an amazing, very long, very great meeting for back to school planning with them today, and I was just so appreciative and reminded how great they are.
Thanks, Ashley. Shannon, and then Steve.
So fun celebration for me is I don't as often get Westlake feedback in the wild as the rest of you do, but I actually work with someone who is a Westlake parent, and so they were, after the last board meeting or sometime in the past couple of weeks, was just congratulating us on all the work and the thoughtfulness and making the right decisions. And they have friends who are teachers in different districts kind of in the greater Sacramento area who were not happy with their rollout plans, were not happy with the communication from their schools, and generally just, have had a much different experience this year, and with the thought of sending their students back onto campus. And so, they were just giving us kudos, and they feel really comfortable with their student coming back on campus and really happy with the decision. So, it's always fun because I don't get a lot of the Westlake praise in the wild. And then, also, just one of my close friends who's a high school teacher and who has been extremely unhappy with how her school is planning to just force them to go back with very little preparation, was asking me a bunch of questions about our reopening plan, and it was kind of awesome that I had answers to all of her questions, and sufficient answers, and answers that she was excited about, and was like, yeah, I'd be in a totally different situation if you all were making a plan for me to go back to campus, and I wouldn't be fighting at every board meeting. So it's fun for me to get feedback from the community.
Thanks, Shannon. Steve, and then Amy.
I'd just love to give a big shout out to Mama Wells. If anyone has been a part of Westlake, Mama Wells will take care of you, whether you need a shoulder or a hug or some food or something like that, right? Go to Mama Wells. And to see Wells just kind of taking the charge for Westlake down at the Natomas High School Clinic has just been amazing. And just to see what she's doing down there as part of the community, and it's just been fantastic. So, Amy, thank you so much. You are a rock star.
Oh my God, you guys are amazing. I think I'm supposed to celebrate after that.
You should celebrate you.
Celebrate yourself.
No, I'm not going to celebrate myself. I'm going to celebrate After School Live. I took it on this year and wasn't quite sure what I was doing, but surrounded myself with people who did and got it off the ground. And the benefit to the kids is one thing, but the benefit to me far outweighs it in my head. I'm really selfish. I have got to spend some one-on-one time with some really amazing kids, including a fourth grader this week he was in the Legos club, and it was just the two of us. And so I sat and talked to him while he played Legos, and it turned into a conversation about his books, and it turned into a conversation about movies, and then it turned into a conversation about coming back to school. And I said, how do you feel about that? And he said, well, I'm excited, but I'm a little bit scared. And I said, you know what, buddy? I'm excited and I'm a little bit scared. And he just kind of stopped and he looked at me and I said, but I can tell you that I will be right there to see you on the first day of school and any other time that you need us. We are all here for you and we have worked so hard to make you safe. And he was like, okay, cool. And then he went back to his Legos and I was like, well, that was that. So it's, I'm so grateful to Jen for asking me to take it on and make it my baby, and I will probably never give it up. So ASL. And all of you.
Well, every school needs a Mama Wells. I mean, we just have to, I guess we could just, copy you. No, we can't. There's only one Amy Wells.
Good thing.
I mean, we're not even getting to all the animals you've saved. I mean, we really do need an Amy Wells appreciation night. No joke. But with that, are there any other board comments that people want to make? Ashley.
I guess this could have been my celebration too, but Wells made me think of it. I had a parent yesterday and two parents today say how nervous they were, even though they were excited. And after watching the orientation material, they were no longer nervous and they felt confident and safe. And so I think it's important for anyone who's listening it's a lot of material. And if you haven't dove into it yet and you're feeling like that fourth grader that Amy talked about, families are feeling really good after seeing it.
No, and as a non-Westlake parent, with another educational thing, I can say that having watched it all myself, I am super jealous of it. I think it could have gone a long way to some of the other social emotional stuff we're seeing with my daughter and at her school. So just to celebrate again Westlake and always thinking about every child and what they need and every family and what they need. Ashley, your point's really well taken. With that, John, do we have any public comments at this time?
Yeah, I did see one come in. Let me take a look here. We have one. It says general public comment for board meeting is the subject. Would you like me to read it in? I hope. Very good. It says,
yes, please.
It says, thanks to all the staff, admin, and teachers for the hard work getting ready to welcome the first set of students back to campus next week. We are excited with all of you! ! Carissa Richards Johnson. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. A-Dub, I will forward this to you to include in the minutes. That is the only comment, but we'll keep an eye out on the inbox.
Perfect. Thank you. And that brings us to our reports for this evening. I will be filling in for Amber Husted. So WAVE has two key events coming up. First, join WAVE on Wednesday, March 31st from 6 to 6:30 for a virtual family STEM night hosted by Sierra Nevada Journeys. This night is limited to the first 40 registered families. A link to join in the materials list, which are typical household items, are sent once you reserve your spot. You can go to the WAVE Facebook group or the Westlake Weekly for sign-up information. And then, as you hopefully know, each year Westlake Charter School celebrates its cultural diversity at a phenomenal international festival. Families share food, traditions, dance, crafts, and information about their culture while taking a trip around the world to share that experience with other Explorer families. This year's virtual event will launch on Sunday, April 25th. If you're interested in sharing recipes, crafts, traditions, or information about your culture through a video, picture, recipe, dance, or just about any way you can think of, please email Amber at amberhusted@gmail.com to sign up or get more information. So Amber apologized for not being able to join us tonight, but those are really the two key things Wave had. So with that, I will kick it over to Shannon, although Charter didn't meet. So do you want that just to be your note? Yes. So no impact report this month. Development hasn't met yet. Finance, I will fill in. I'm playing a lot of roles tonight. Now that I think about this, I know Sean would happily be doing this if she were here. So finance did meet. We reviewed and approved recommending adoption of the second interim that's on the agenda tonight, and we continue to do our annual compensation review, and that work will continue 2 weeks from now at our next finance meeting. Governance did not meet tonight, so John, it's all yours.
There we go. It looks like, is that Sean coming in right now? No, that's Shannon. That's the S there. Yeah. All right. I'll take my slides from the top. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good to see you, and thank you for being here. For all of you out there in YouTube landia, thanks for tuning in. I have some celebrations, some strategic actions, some updates. We'll talk a little school reopening. We'll talk a little lottery. Some good stuff today. So I'm excited to present to you this evening. Just some celebrations to start with. Really thankful to the board for approving our staff planning days. Those days have really produced some incredible work. Our staff are preparing to reopen school, and that time has been thus far incredibly well used. And I'll even show you some pictures tonight of how the classrooms are coming together. Also, I got to tell you, the campus culture of having our staff back on campus preparing to do the work and doing what Westlake does. Everyone's, 6 feet of social distancing, masked, but, enjoying one another during breaks and lunch times. Of course, like we said, Amy Wells is on a loudspeaker doing raffles every hour, feeding us constantly. You're just finishing your breakfast burrito, and she's hollering, "It's time for lunch!" And then you're trying to get your lunch, you get settled, and it's like, "Cookies are on the table, come out for dessert." It's like, oh my gosh, how do we get any work done? Amy's feeding us every 5 minutes. Just great. The culture feels good. It feels like we're ready. This is the best part of that time, though. These are people on their feet, boots on the ground, walking around, doing the trainings, practicing the protocols, making sure that we understand exactly what it's going to look like when our children arrive. Our staff is ready inside the classroom and outside the classroom. The work's getting done. This is Steve caught this. This is like a fist bump as Melissa Grunholtz at the lottery night said, "Okay, that is our 9th grade lottery." And I was like, yes, we just ran a 9th grade lottery. And so there's this great moment of like, wow, we pulled the lottery for 9th grade. And I'll give you updates later, but great lottery pull. Hey, we've had an opportunity. People have reached out to us. Josh, you had mentioned, hey, there's other people are also opening. But several colleagues have reached out to me particularly and said, hey, I'm watching your school. I'm hearing about your school. How are you guys doing what you do? And this is, Monica took a little screenshot of this Google Doc that we've been sharing with some colleagues. And it's really interesting. When you layer up the work that Westlake does, the way they do it, it tells a really nice story. We're very proud. It's easy to tell our story because Westlake's produced so much documentation for our staff and for our families and for we just put all these documents on a doc, and other leaders around the state are like, wow, that we'd like to steal all this, and we're like, steal everything. So really proud of that. These are our virtual orientation materials. I'm just going to pause on this for one moment, and I'll say this. I've talked to several other leaders about our virtual orientation materials, and what I've told leaders is there's this one section of this where on the back end for okay, I got it. On the back end of all these materials, there's a staff side of this, and on the staff side, there's 31 memos that talk about how we do what we do, but there's also 31 sets of slides and 31 videos. And of those 31 sets of slides, videos, and memos, I think 24 of the videos are made by teachers and staff members, not administration. And so when you going through all of the videos as a staff member, you're not just hearing John and Steve and Jen and Em and Amy, like you're hearing from your colleagues. And that really speaks to this shared leadership piece that is Westlake Charter School, this shared decision-making, shared values. So just really want to talk about the collaboration behind those pieces. It's so great. Of course, we had a wonderful coffee talk last night, speaking of collaboration, and we had Dr. Casserier, the Sacramento County Public Health Officer. She was on Coffee Talk last night, speaking to our parent community, and also Dr. Atwall from UC Davis, also speaking to our community. That was a real big deal. They both spoke to our staff 2 weeks ago before the last board meeting. Then last night before this board meeting, they came back on and spoke to our families. And it was really impactful to ask them things like, hey, is it okay if we go to a birthday party on Sunday and then show up to school on a Monday? And they were like, no, don't do that. You want to keep your school open? Play it conservative. So it was great to hear from the experts in the field very definitively how we should be playing this thing. It felt great. Let's dive in some strategic actions. High school development, big deal here, everybody. Westlake Charter School Board of Directors, you have a fully staffed high school. You are 80 business days from opening up your 9th grade. You are completely staffed. We will begin our staff professional development. We will come out and we will introduce you to our staff members. You will be mind blown at the caliber of incredible human beings that are joining the already incredible human beings that work here. We had cream of the crop. Remember, we had well over 100 applications, and we got some amazing staff members. Very proud of the people we hired. Award-winning scholars, people involved with NASA partnerships. One of our new teachers has been regionally recognized for operating a Black student union for many years. People with incredible credentials are staffing our new high school, or our high school expansion. You'll see in the packet tonight, and I'll speak to it. We have a facilities use agreement, which confirms our vision and our plans for the future high school. So very excited about that strategic action. I'll show you tonight on the slides. We've been working on that particular FUA now for maybe a few more months than we had anticipated. I think instead of taking like 5 months to do that work, it took us like 25 months. But we'll bring it to a close tonight. And then we're preparing for in-person learning, right? Our staff and our families have been communicated with, we think, very clearly, and we're ready for a safe and successful opening. So those are the strategic actions that I wanted to tell you about tonight. Any questions about any of those topics? You guys are okay? Let's talk about updates, kind of walk through them. We're obviously going to talk about, let's go back to school, right? Let's talk about returning to school. Before we do, I thought it was appropriate, Steve and I pulled these slides. These are the slides that I showed you 1 year ago today. It was a board meeting. It was actually on March 12th, but it was a Thursday night, like it is tonight, a Thursday night. It was Thursday night, the 12th. Remember, Friday the 13th, we had no school. On the 12th, we had just called it that day before you all had a board meeting. It was the last board meeting, I think, where we saw each other. True? Like we were in person a year ago today. And these were the slides we showed you. We said, hey, I think this COVID thing might be real. Here's what just happened in the last month. Japan closed a bunch of schools. We've been communicating with our families. We kind of walked through our plans. We said, hey, look, we're planning for potential closures back. It's possible. These are the slides that were on the docket, as a recap of the work that we had talked about. The next slide's great, but this one says, okay, we got a staff meeting here. We have a whole communications plan if this thing goes down. This is the best. On 3/6, we had a staff roundup and said, at this point, all actions are still precautionary. On the 7th, Elk Grove closed. Do you remember that? Like we were like, don't worry, it's probably nothing. We're just going to prepare just in case. Just kidding. Elk Grove closed. Panic. Go ahead. You may panic now. Like, it's just so wild to look at these slides and think about where we were a year ago today, because here it comes. Like a year ago today, we're in conference week. We wake up in the morning and we're like, oh, I see what's about to happen. We have a board meeting tonight, and NUSD called it. We're not coming to school tomorrow. We're closing. So we came out on that night and said, okay, board, we're going to close too. This next day is now future tense. So this is what we're planning. Tomorrow morning will be our first ever all virtual. We don't know how we're going to do it. We have no idea. How are we going to hold a staff meeting if we can't meet in person? Like, this is a year ago today. We couldn't imagine, and here we are today. I haven't seen half of you in person in over a year. Sean, it was good to see you today in 3D. I was like, oh, we saw you at the shot clinic, all this volunteering. I didn't mean to bore you with these slides, you guys, but I just thought, wow, what a interesting jam-packed set of slides. And we thought, look, we're going to go home. We're going to make some videos about hand washing. We'll be back here on Tuesday the 17th. That's it. We're going to return on the 17th of March. I should have put the year because we're coming in early. The 15th. A wrong year. Just wild. I know you've all processed that and thought about it too, but I just thought, my goodness, we should take a moment to realize from the Thursday in March to a Thursday in March how much has transpired. That's looking backwards. Let's look forward. I'll walk through these, all these slides. I walked through it at the coffee talk last night, but I think it's worth noting. Our county adjusted case rate is now at 9.5, which is fantastic. We know that's great news for Sacramento. It's the lowest we've been since November. First time we've been in double digits or single digits in quite some time. So here's our progress. K2 opens March 15th. K3-5 opens up March 22nd. Oh, I left it 6th through 9th grade. That was a typo. It's really 6th through 8th grade. This is me thinking ahead. 6th through 8th grade reopens after we're in the red tier, which is coming up. We hope it's coming soon. Here's what your school looks like right now, right? Of course this is the way it looks. This is Westlake Charter School. Like there's a rainbow, blow-up rainbow in one room. And another room has these beautifully taped off, little sections where everything's personalized for our children. They're warm and they're welcoming. They're not scary nor sterile feeling. It feels like Westlake. Our safety protocols, our guidelines, everything is set to expectation, and the staff are trained and excited for students to return. Here's another couple pictures. Right, I think this is first grade. Everybody's got their own little basket of stuff. AB kids. Here's another look at a kindergarten room. There's a personalized materials there. Here's a 5th grade room. I love this room. It's got the little vibe with the hanging plants and everybody's got 2 desks instead of one. So I got materials on one desk to my left, and I can work at my desk to the right, and we're all socially distanced appropriately. So what do our families need to hear? When do I come to campus? How do I prepare to come? How do I come to campus? How will it look on campus? And then how do I pick up my student? And we just kind of walk through this for our families. We said, hey, you're getting a series of emails, 1 per night for 3 nights. And it's going to say, hey, if your student's name is Esmeralda Explorer, she's going to get an email from her 1st grade teacher, Mrs. Awesome, that says, okay, you're in cohort A. This is your day to come to school. This is what you should bring to school, and this is what not to bring to school, right? We're kind of walking people through it. We know it's all in the guidebook. Guidebook's like 27 pages. That could be intimidating. So we're dripping the information again in these little nightly emails leading up to the countdown of the event, right? What should everybody do? They should know about pre-screening. Got to pre-screen using the guidebook. That guidebook there on the right side tells you everything you need to know. You should recognize that when you walk up to the gate in the morning, we're also going to do a verbal pre-screening. And then, if there's anyone has even a single symptom, you got to sit out until you're at least 24 hours symptom-free. So we want to be real clear about that with our families, and that's really spelled out on the safety guidelines here on page 9? On page 9. So just trying to be clear with families and reiterate, the reason we developed the schedule that we did was if you want to come to school in the morning, but you have a tummy ache, you got to sit out. It's just what you got to do. That's okay, because this lesson from 8:30 a.m. is being repeated in the afternoon in the distance learning session. So you can sit out and not miss any instruction. And so that's part of the reason why I think our schedule makes a lot of sense, is because we're going to be vigilant about, hey, anybody is symptomatic, please stay home. How do I prepare to come to campus? I got to go through these virtual orientation materials. We talked a little bit about those. If you as a board member haven't been through those, I encourage you to peek through them so you understand the expectations and the experience that the parents are going through. A great piece of material there, and you'll get a real vision of like, okay, I see what's expected from our community. I see what they're going through. Families should be reviewing this at home. Our teachers are reviewing it in class all week this week, or they have been. And then how do my students come to campus? Just so you know as a board member, it's on the guideline, obviously, but we have separate arrival gates. And it's all mapped out. Who walks in, who drives up, where does kindergarten go? They have their own space because we know Kindergartners are going to be like Velcro to their parents. We're going to peel them off and send them on their way. So we got that all worked out. We're even staggering out some of the arrival times. Kindergarten families, please don't show up until 8:40, right? The rainbows, yeah, totally. Kindergarten families show up at your appropriate time. Everyone else show up at your appropriate time, between 8:10 and 8:30. We're even asking people if they can help us to stagger a little bit. Last names A through M, if you can. Show up before 8:20, N through Z. Show up after 8:20. That just helps us have a trickle at the gate instead of a flood at the gate. We're not going to turn anybody away. Oh, I know what your last name is. You're at wrong time. We're just asking people to help out with the stagger. What will it look like on campus? We've gone over this for months, right? Social distancing outside, social distancing inside. This is all from our guidebook. Regular hand washing and hygiene. Everyone will be wearing a face covering. We'll be checking to make sure it's over your nose and below your chin at the gate before you enter onto campus. And then structured activity breaks. And again, another shout out to Amy Wells and that whole team who has figured out how to make recess time awesome, but activities time that is structured and isn't just a free-for-all with kids running around so we can stay social distanced. And then the last piece is how do we pick up our students after school? And this is a big deal. We've always used school dismissal manager, but a big change here is we've always encouraged families to walk on campus and stand outside the door. Well, we can't do that anymore. Families won't be on campus because there's no visitors on campus. And so we've had to restructure school dismissal managers so that, if you're going to walk up to the gate and wait for your child, we give you a safe place to stand, and then we let the teacher know to send your student to you, and you can exit together. A well-orchestrated piece, very proud of the work that the team's done on that, but it is a change, for families who are used to walking on campus. But I think it's been well communicated, and we'll iron it out. We're also just asking everybody within the sound of our voice, go to our website and read through this guideline. It's very visual. If you have any questions, we would take them now, right? We want people to read it this week before we open next week, because if you wait till Monday morning to read it, we're not going to have a lot of time to respond to questions, right? So I'd love to get them now. For our board, I try to race through that, but are there any questions, thoughts, or concerns about the reopening pieces that I shared? Hope Golick?
John, do you have any use for board members yet? I mean, you said no visitors on campus,
Yep.
But I just wanted to give you the opportunity. I just don't know if you need us.
I appreciate it. Number one, I wanted to shout out, it is my understanding, and I could be misspeaking, but that every single board member has already either signed up and volunteered at the COVID clinic, so thank you for doing that, or you've already signed up for a future day. So first of all, to our entire board who's willing to get in the mix and do that volunteerism, I love that. The next volunteer piece that I would recruit you for is maybe some parking lot floating. So as we're bringing people into the front parking lot, do we need help, people moving from a distance? First grade, line up over here. Oh, you need help getting breakfast? It's over there. So I might be able to use some of that. I'm gonna default to Melissa Grunholz, who's I'm sure watching the show tonight. If MG needs us, I'll reach out to you guys maybe through A-Dub there and get you guys going. But thanks, Hope. Good question. Any other questions, team? Good? Good. Good. So we're coming out of that reopening piece. I do have a couple of just my regular updates for you. One of them is the FUA piece. I'll do that now, so that way when we get to the action item later, we can discuss it. But hey, just big shout out to Melissa Grunholz and everybody who touches the lottery. Hey, lottery's a big deal to our school. I think we do it well, but this is the first time it was ever done live on YouTube. Just let us know what you need. Yeah, you got it. Melissa pulled off this brilliant lottery live on YouTube. That's stressful. You're live on YouTube right now. Yeah, got it. So, we held the lottery on March 1st. It was completed for all grades by 5:40 p.m. I mean, it was beautiful. She does such a great job of doing this. Everyone got an email that night, and we notified people who were watching, hey, let us know if you didn't get the email. By that night, everybody was emailed. We had 105 kindergarten spots offered, and you all know we offer 105 spots. We hold 5 in case of retentions. As of Tuesday, all 105 spots were confirmed, which is beautiful. We offered the spots. 7 days later, did everybody take the spots, or did we hit the wait list? And all spots were confirmed. The 2 fourth grade spots through natural growth, we always have 2 fourth grade spots. Those were offered, both confirmed. And then 38 ninth grade spots were offered. Why 38? We have 112 current 8th graders. So we offered 38 spots because we couldn't take any more than 150 ninth graders if we tried, right? So 150 is kind of your max ninth grade capacity. So of those 38, we have 34 confirmed. We had some decline and we dipped into the wait list, and we have 4 pending on those 38. Now we do have almost half of our 8th grade class has already confirmed as well, which is wonderful. Now they don't have to until the final deadline for them, I think, is March 26th or March 22nd. So they don't have to have confirmed, but we have had nearly 50% of our 8th grade class confirm that they are coming to our 9th grade, which is a real win. We really like that. So we had 1,372 total applicants pulled in the lottery, which means we currently have 1,234. Oh, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1,234 people on the wait list. Now that's easy to remember. How many people on the wait list? 1, 2, 3, 4. Any questions about lottery? Yeah, Hope?
So I guess it's going to be the night of my questions.
I love it.
So, John, you mentioned accepting it to 150 in 9th grade as our max.
Yeah.
So how will that work moving forward?
That's
like,
great
do you have
question.
plans to dial it back to 125 or keep it at 150?
Yeah. So I mean, in our process over this last year and talking with other high schools, they said, hey, you should probably, if you want to be a 500 seat school, which is what we want to be, if you only take 125 freshmen, you think, oh, well, 125, and you have times 4 is 500. Well, high school has a matriculation, right? Like that's a little more unusual, not typical to the K-8. And backfilling is harder. So when we lose a 3rd grade Westlake charter kid, people take that 3rd grade slot. It's hard to fill an 8th grade spot, in January, because people are like, hey, I'm in 8th grade, I'm not going to move. And same thing with junior and senior year. You go try to fill a junior and senior year vacancy, people are like, I'm already good, I'm locked in. So what we're finding is, hey, fill the 150 freshman year, and then by the time you grow those kids up, hey, people move out of state, people go to a different neighborhood, things happen, that you're hedging your bet, so you're still going to be 500 when you get there. You'll see in the FUA, for example, that conversation plays out in the FUA. Originally, the FUA had said, we're going to have 125 kids per grade level. It doesn't say that anymore. It gives us the flexibility to say, hey, we're shooting for 500 kids, not a single grade level target, so that we can adjust appropriately. Does that make sense? Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, as my high school class shrunk by half.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense to me. I just, in case people out there were wondering about the change, or not the change, but the thought process, I thought it'd be good to share it.
Well, look, a lot of high schools, their classes shrink due to dropout rate. I'll say it live on YouTube. We will not have that issue. We will put all our efforts into that. Won't be why our class shrinks, right? With the pieces that we have built in for support. But yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, it's up and running. High school's coming, everybody. I'm going to talk facility use agreement now, so that when we get the action item, we'll have all the intel. Just wanted to kind of go over the progress, the timeline. You remember back in September of 19, right? So that's like a year and a half ago at this point. Our charter was approved, and we were like, great, let's get working on that FUA. And we've done so much work. I mean, this is a meeting. Steve and I are sitting in Senator Pan's office talking about the charter school facilities program. This is in November of 19, and we're like, we're cooking. We're like getting things lined up. We're working with William and Patton and starting to design potential concepts for our future high school building. Like, we think there's no such thing as a pandemic. This is funny to reflect on, but we are in a small room with no masks, breathing on each other, talking about this, and then bam, I mean, you look what happens in February of 2020. We were in a closed session with this board, talking about what's possible, looking at potential design plans, and then look, you see what happens, right? From February the conversation stalls. We talk about it in April of 2020 and nothing again until September, right? So you'll recall what we were doing during those times, mostly just vacationing. Just kidding. We were working all summer to prepare for school, through distance learning. So we lost that summer there, but we've been in closed sessions. We've been working with the board. All this work's been in progress, and I'm very proud of where we landed today because we've gone through several iterations of the facility use conversation with our partners in the Tomas Unified School District. And as you read that FUA, right, what are you looking at? You're going to see, language in there that we worked hard to keep in there. All the stuff that you see on the screen right now are things that were not in the original draft back from NUSD. So every one of them was a stretch for us. It was, hey, we want to put that language back in there that was in the previous FUA that said, hey, we will be treated like every other charter school consistently with our facility use agreement. Because that language was in the last FUA, but didn't come back in this FUA, but we got it in there through a good, solid conversation with our authorizer. Improvements to East Commerce. They're actually fixing up tile, patching up some things that are broken that wasn't part of the original conversation. The potential for us to purchase a property and district development of that property, in a future FUA addendum. That's all language that we got added into this FUA. The DSA. The idea that, hey, if we're going to build something with NUSD, we all agree it's going to be DSA approved, not a commercial building, which is a piece I think that will make our community feel good. And then these two pieces down here are for the Mabry campus. We got deferred maintenance conversation added because this campus, while it's still brand new and beautiful, will start to age over time. So it's appropriate to get that put into our FUA. And this is a real celebration. NUSD is going to put a shade structure over our playground here on the Mabry campus. So those are just some of the highlights that are in the FUA. We worked hard on it. We're proud of the work. And when we get to the action item tonight, please, we can refer back to these slides or have a dialogue about it. Are there any questions, thoughts, or concerns about this while I have it up here right now? Good. And then the last piece, just want to put this on the table, Assembly Bill 86. I mean, I'm looking, maybe Michelle would probably present this slide instead of me, but I'll give it my best shot. Right, so AB 86 came out, I believe it was approved March 5th, maybe. So this is pretty brand new, right? This is a COVID-19 relief and school reopening reporting in public health. So this really affects Westlake Charter School. This is, there it is, March 5th. This is a big deal for us. It talks about, okay, so if you're going to reopen prior to March 31st or have an agreement to reopen prior to March 31st, so we obviously meet both, then there's two grants available. The first grant's about $2 billion, and this is really to stimulate in-person learning needs, PPE, materials strictly for reopening is the conversation there. And it's estimated about $250,000 to Westlake Charter School, which is wonderful. The second piece, the $4.5 billion state grant, and this is really about expanded learning opportunities. This is a little larger sum of money to Westlake, right? A little over $500,000, and it's really about expanding learning opportunities, mitigating learning loss. Are you doing summer school? Are you doing an increased ROAR impact in the fall? Is it about staffing to make sure your ratios are appropriate? This money has to be spent by, I'm going to say it out loud and say it wrong, but I believe it might be August of 22, not 21. So you got a year to kind of put this to work for our kids. It does require a plan, which the state has a template because they do love some templates. And it's due 6/1, which somebody may think feels like a long time away. I feel like that's tomorrow morning. So we have some work to do to develop that plan, but obviously our team's already nose to the grindstone and putting that piece together. Asymptomatic testing is an interesting piece of that. I got it listed down here. Steve, you and I both might have updated this slide because I put it down here. So I'll bring it up down here. Josh?
Yeah, I know when we talked a while back, gosh, I don't remember what month it was, they were kind of dangling a carrot for reopening for PPE. And you guys, this was when we were still closed and we weren't ready to open yet. But I thought you guys had done the research, and that was nowhere near enough to break even. It was actually, I thought, going to be a loss item as far as it was going to be more expense than it was revenue.
Yeah.
Is this still the case with that, or does this cover it?
Actually, well, then I'll go ahead and cover this piece right now, the asymptomatic testing piece, because what you actually are referring to is the cost of the asymptomatic or surveillance testing. When we did that analysis back when the governor first put out that governor's plan, like December 27th, and by I think January 14th, we met as a board and talked about that. At that time, we were looking at I'm trying to pull the numbers, but like $40 a head for surveillance testing. If you were going to test, 600 people per week, we were pulling numbers, of upwards of $400,000 in just testing alone. However, under Assembly Bill 86, the new legislation here indicates that any school that opens prior to March 31st or has a plan to reopen prior to March 31st no longer has to adhere or follow the cadence that's recommended in those recommendation documents, which is kind of a weird thing to do, but I think they buckled under the cry of like, oh, that testing is so burdensome and so hard, and the payoff on the 7 layers of mitigation are that like it's not even the top 7 layers. And so I think the state has said, look, if you open using the appropriate 7 layers and have a safety plan, then you don't have to do the asymptomatic testing. Now, I will tell you, team, we are still encouraging all of our staff and our family members to utilize the testing clinic with Natomas Unified School District on Tuesdays. We're also still working on asymptomatic or surveillance testing for our staff on a voluntary basis, facilitated right here at the school through the vendor partner that we have. Am I the only one that can't see anybody's face? I can see everybody's face. Michelle, can you not see us?
I can too, Michelle.
Maybe do a little refresh, Michelle, and I'll stall.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I'll hang. So Josh, does that answer that question? It was mostly a testing issue. Actually, when Michelle comes back, I'll speak a little more to the testing piece because we do intend to continue at least deeply investigating the asymptomatic screening piece because there's been actually some little changes to it that benefit us. Great, she's back.
John, can I add one bit real fast because I think it fits, and then I'll let you transition.
Sure.
So the one thing, at least, and I know Michelle might be able to confirm this too, we have way loads more tests than are currently being used. So I really believe anybody who wants to find a test should be able to find that pretty easily at this point.
Yeah.
Whether it's the CVS drive-through or you look at your county's whatever county you lived in website. Like I believe both counties are using like 20% of their available tests at this point. And so I just wanted to share that because I think at least for staff or family concerned, they want or feel the need to get tested. I don't think there's any barrier to that at this point, which is nice.
Yeah, agreed.
Sorry.
I mean, testing is obviously a voluntary issue, and the contracts that we're considering utilizing here on campus, certainly for staff, because we know that staff-to-staff contact creates a higher transmission risk than student-to-staff contact. And any student, we are encouraging all of our students and all of our families to utilize those tests that you're talking about through Natomas Unified School District. However, because staff are the adults who will be on campus, we'd like to try to make it even easier to say, hey, let's make sure at some appropriate cadence our staff have access. And so that's why we're really focusing on facilitating that on campus because we think that we talked to Dr. Kasiri last night, and she actually said, hey, yeah, that sounds like a responsible and conservative plan. One of the things that's changed, Josh, since January 14th was our understanding of the costs on January 14th didn't include private health insurance. And so now in working with these contract vendors, they're saying, well, hey, your people are considered essential workers, and so therefore they can bill it directly to their insurance provider, and it's no cost out of pocket for them, and so that's going to help us facilitate some of that without it becoming cost prohibitive. So, long way to get around to that question. That's where we're at. And funny that Steve and I put it on 2 different spots on the slide. Thanks, Steve. That's good. Reporting in public health is just kind of an important one. We must report all instances to Sacramento County Public Health of positive cases on campus. So if a student steps on campus, staff steps on campus, if we find out that they were a COVID positive, then we're mandated to report to the Sacramento County Public Health. And then twice monthly, the school status is reported to the California Department of Public Health regarding our reopening. Hey, we're open K2 right now. Hey, now we're open K5. So we'll be reporting regularly to them. And this is the adjusted recommendation I was discussing regarding the asymptomatic screening. That it's very clear in AB 86 that if you open school, for whatever reason they came up with, if you open school by the 31st, you don't have to follow that screening cadence. However, Westlake being Westlake, we're going to err on the side of caution and try and do the safer step. That's Steve's slide. I won't steal the interim budget. That concludes my report. Are there any questions about my report tonight?
I have one that's kind of unrelated to your report, but at the same time related.
Sure.
Have you heard anything about CASP? I know there's been a lot of talk about state testing, and AB 86 didn't address that, correct? So that's still sort of out there waiting on Department of Ed.
Yeah, it is green light for CASP testing. Letters are prepped and being ready to send home. Our Student Support Services and Curriculum Instruction team, falling under Christina Ike, our director, is working diligently to organize it. I have to tell you, I've been an administrator now for many, many years, and I've facilitated many testing, back from STAR testing all the way through CAP. I have never seen a more complex scenario than what we're about to enter into. You have students who are testing on campus. Some students have to be testing remotely off campus. There's a secure browser involved that has to be transferred to the home computer and web cameras. And it's a fascinating experiment that we're about to engage in, but nobody better than Westlake to prevail. We'll do a great job. We expect it to start on, I believe, April 26th. We expect it to happen 1 week per grade level, or maybe it's grade band. I'll bring you back the details though right before we launch it, so you see the cadence of it. But yeah, the team's got a great plan. It's ready to launch.
Yeah, I guess I was just optimistic that someone might make this data is not going to be ever the most usful.
Yeah,
right. You have to weigh in all these factors. Yeah. So
to be clear, the federal government would not allow California to waive it. The California Department of Education was interested in waiving it, but they just couldn't get out of the obligation with the feds. And so we got to everyone. It's like everyone's got a boss, right? And so we're like, okay, well, they say we're doing it, we're doing it. So allegedly, it would cost somewhere in the tune of $73 billion to postpone testing from this spring to next fall. So we'll ask Steve. He's got his hand raised. Maybe he can explain the money on that. Just kidding. Steve, what do you got, man?
Not to the money piece, but the State Board of Ed is meeting next week. I think it's Tuesday and Wednesday to kind of further talk about the issue. At their last meeting, they talked about the possibility of requesting a waiver. And so I think they're going to bring it back next week. And so we probably will know more Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. I mean, it sounded like they were about to punt on CAST, the science test. It looked like it was getting some wiggle room there. At one point, there's the postpone on the table. Maybe we'll be able to postpone testing to the fall. They came out and said, we're going to postpone till June 30th. We're like, well, that does us no good at all. What are we going to do at June 30th? So anyway, we will bring it back. Thanks. Anybody else have any questions?
I didn't mean to segue there, John.
Okay.
It's just, I know it's on some people's minds and you see it in the media, so I just wanted to make sure I understood the current state of affairs is all.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, hey, we'll do what we're asked to do. We'll do it well. It is, not the commentary on it, but we're only going to be back in school for so much time. It'd be nice to focus on SEL and academic progress rather than testing, but there's things outside of our control. Thank you, everybody, for your attention to this presentation. I will turn it back over to you, Hope.
Why don't we go ahead and check for any public comments real fast?
I did just take a peek, and we are all clear. No public comments.
Perfect. So that brings us to our consent agenda tonight. We have items A through F. If there aren't any questions, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Thanks, Shannon. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I got Ashley first. Sorry. Miss Amy, will you take a roll call vote?
Yes. Hope?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Vasa?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
And Jed?
Yes.
Thanks, Amy. That brings us to our first general action item, the second interim budget. So, Steve.
All right, let me share my screen here. Good evening, everybody.
There you go. Your screen is shared. Well done.
You can't share your screen, Steve. You're funny.
Yeah, you can't share your screen because it won't show up on YouTube. So
Gotcha. I guess I'm used to our finance meetings where I share them up. So, all right, there we go.
All right, we got you on the screen.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right. Yeah, so good evening, everybody. Tonight we're talking about the second interim budget for this school year and kind of get a peek ahead into what next year is looking like as well. So with that, we can move on ahead. There we go. So every often we get the question of what we need to comply with as a nonprofit that manages a public school. And so this is probably somewhat familiar to you, but we, of course, every year need to look at our first interim budget and financial audits, as well as our second interim, which we're doing right now, and then our adopted budgets later in the year. And so that just calls out for the board and anyone who's interested the pieces that we need to comply with and the due dates that we need to have them wrapped up by. So with that, we can jump ahead to the next slide. So what's in the second interim budget? So the second interim budget includes all the revenues and expenditures for the school. So everything that comes into Westlake Charter School, including our base program, donations, interest, again, revenue that gets brought in from WAVE. So everything is all together in a single budget for us. And you'll notice in the budget, when compared to our first interim budget just a few months ago, revenue is just down slightly a little bit. And that's predominantly due to base and some of the lack of revenue that we've seen because attendance obviously has continued to shift as we have not opened. And back in the fall, we had considered that we thought we might open. And that, of course, did not happen. So we continue to use school services. School services is kind of a statewide organization that provides very solid estimates. So we use those in conjunction with revenue estimates we get from our SELPA, from Natomas Unified School District regarding kind of local tax and lieu rates. So all of these pieces come together. And then, of course, we use the governor's January budget proposal when he came out and provided some projections for us. And that kind of all goes into the mix as we prepare our second interim budget. So the revenue standpoint, again, the revenues have been updated to where we believe they were back in January at the end of the first interim period. And again, from a state economy, the state continues to do really, really well. State revenues are quite a bit higher than where we thought they were going to be back in May and June when we adopted our budgets. And so again, from an economic standpoint, the state continues to do well. There are, of course, the potential derailers, as I noted here. Recovery from the pandemic, obviously, is the largest one. Interest rates, what may happen with kind of commercial property if the businesses don't come back in is another significant one as well. So, but all in all, the state economy continues to do really well. students. I mentioned this next point here a little bit already, but back at first interim, we assumed we were writing the return to school guidebook and getting ready to publish it. I think we might come back in November, maybe December. And with that, we updated our base and attendance projections. And of course, that didn't come to fruition. So we've kind of adjusted base revenue once again as we look at what may happen now through the end of the year. And as we start to welcome students back to campus and look into spring break and summer, we're kind of getting some positive input on what some of those programs might look like over those periods. So we're excited about that. And then at the very end here, just future years continue to show growth in attendance and therefore revenue, predominantly because of the high school program getting added on, and then the COLA that's the governor presented in his January budget for those multi-years as well. So on the expenditure side of the house, largely in line where we were with adopted and the first interim budget. It's interesting because the SBA loan, the PPP loan that we got towards the end of last year was forgiven. So you'll see that in the budget come out as a specific line item towards the bottom of the paper there. You may have noticed a $53,000 amount at the earlier budgets not appear in the second interim budget because the loan was forgiven. So that's great news for the organization. And then we did see an increase in travel and conferences. You may be asking yourself, why travel and conferences, right? Who's traveling these days? No one's traveling these days. Well, it's true. We're not traveling, but we are attending a lot of conferences and a lot of conferences digitally. So that's why we saw a little pop in that budget line there. And then advertisement and postage also went up. We spent quite a bit of time and effort this past few months promoting enrollments, particularly in high school, and doing some broad outreach. And postage has not gotten less expensive. So you saw those lines kind of spike up a little bit too. And then in the coming months, and actually just approved early this evening in consent were some expenditures coming for the high school. We just approved the TV carts, anything we can get in now as we prepare to move. We're going to try and do that. So we have plenty of time to build the carts and get them all situated. But we'll begin to draw down those budgetary lines in the coming months as the high school gets closer and closer. All right, so just two quick pie charts here. The one on the left is our revenue slide, so really the money that comes in, and on the right, it's the expenditure pie charts. That's how the money goes out. And on the left-hand side, you can see the largest chunk of our revenue comes from the LCFF and EPA. Those are all state funds. A smaller portion comes for special education, and a piece of that embedded is federal funds, the only federal funds we receive. But again, you can really see the largest amounts comes from state funds. Then over on the expense side, about 77% of our expenditures are related to staffing. So certificated, classified salaries, as well as associated benefits. So that's actually right in line this time around with where NUSD is at their second interim as well. So here's just another look at the second interim budget, same that's in the packet this evening. So you can get a look at where the adopted budget was. Again, the adopted budget, we are considering embracing for impact, if you will, on what a 2021 budget might have been. Now we are first interim. We get a better picture of what the school year looks like. And then again, look in 2 years out from there. So this is the second interim budget. And I think the last slide is, again, it's a positive budget looking this year and a positive as well in the out years, which is great news for the organization. And with that, I will open it to any questions or comments you may have.
Steve, with schools reopening, how is ADA changing? Like, I guess I want to understand how it's being dealt with more schools reopening, if the old number stays or the new number comes.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so ADA for this year is what ADA was for last year, with the exception of, you may recall, there was talk about the legislator capping ADA if you were planning to grow. They ultimately did not cap it for us, although they did for non-classroom-based schools. So we were able to see some ADA growth because we had planned to grow. But essentially our attendance numbers from this year are the same as our attendance numbers from last year. Now we're unsure what will happen in the coming months. as far as what attendance will look like next year. I was on a conference call earlier this week with Eric Grimack from CSDC, and apparently there's some hinting about a possible hold harmless again because we're unsure what next year will look like, but of course nothing is inked yet.
Too bad.
Well, and the hold harmless isn't exactly great for us, if I remember correctly, because our ADA was set at the point where the flu was hitting. If I remember correctly, that we usually count on spring a little bit, maybe to lift that number.
Yeah, I remember correctly. That is true. Yeah, it was actually one of our lowest points for quite some time, and so it wasn't a great timing for us. But it is what it is at this point. We are where we are. So fortunate that we landed where we were.
And then my only other question is, in terms of executing the contracts for the high school purchases, have you run into a lot of COVID-related delays? Like, are things, I guess, looking on track for purchases to open?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we spoke with our furniture vendor for the high school months ago, we kind of backtracked the timetable to bring it to finance and bring it to the board and kind of the timings associated with that, and we moved it back a month so we could place the order, particularly for the VS product, because VS comes from Germany, and we just wanted to make sure that we could get the order in with plenty of time for any disruptions that might happen or might come about. So that was the one that we shipped it a little bit earlier. There have been some delays on Chromebooks, but we jumped from one vendor to another vendor who seemed to deliver them pretty quickly for us. So things here and there, but we're trying to manage and work with them.
I was just curious, knowing that there's actually like a wood shortage, right? You just never know what you might run into in terms of, the last year and everything else. So I thought I'd ask. Before we open it up for board questions, I was wondering if Sean, as finance chair, if you wanted to share any thoughts. You don't have to. I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
Nothing in particular, although I would like to thank Steve and the team for their hard work on the loan and getting that forgiven, because getting it was a big deal and getting it forgiven is even better.
Thank you. Yeah, we did look at the second round of PPP. We did not qualify for that. We also looked at the Cal State grants that's floated out there. We also did not qualify for that. So we're keeping our eyes open. If you see anything, feel free to bring it our way.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Jed, do you have a question?
Well, I was just wondering generally about this second COVID federal package. It seems like it's resulting in a massive influx of new funds. But you didn't make reference to that in your presentation. What are you thinking about that for the next round?
Yeah, are you thinking the 1.9 trillion that was just passed? That? Yeah. Right. So we actually will not get any funds associated with that. That's going to come out in a similar manner to the CARES version 2, where we did not receive any funds for that. So it's interesting. School Services has a great and easy to use calculator where you can plug in your county and your school, and it'll show kind of how much they estimate, both for the in-person learning grants that the governor has proposed, but also for the CARES Act funding that's coming too. And because of how it's distributed out, based upon predominantly Title I, we will not qualify for any of those funds that come. Our other local charter partners and MP3 also will not qualify, and then have to go back and look at the Thomas Charter School also, but I'm not sure if they qualify either.
The charter we looked at today also had the Thomas Charter School at 0. It had, I think, NUSD at 15.6 million, and then each of the charters at 0 on that chart today.
So does you have to be above a certain threshold of FRL?
No, it has to do really with filing the consolidated application, and we can get really technical if you want on it. But so you have to meet certain criteria, be direct funded, file the Con App, be prepared to work within the constraints and audit requirements of receiving federal funds. Once you hit a certain threshold, I believe the amount's like $750,000 of federal funds, you get an additional audit associated with that. So there's with federal funds, quite a bit of red tape that comes with it.
All right, I'll call you separately about this. Just the other charter school that I'm on the board of, this is just it's a massive influx of funding, and so Westlake not to have any of that seems it's jarring to me to hear that from you. So I'll follow up with you separately.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can find a way to uncover a piece of that. We'd love a piece of it, but our early indicators look like we're not. So we also missed out on the CARES Act funding in the last round, which is hard to watch. So yeah, we can scratch on it for sure. Any other follow-up questions for Steve?
And if not, is there a motion to approve? Oh, Michelle, did you have a question?
Yeah, just piggybacking. I know we were thinking about like shipment delays or supply delays, but has the cost significantly increased beyond what we budgeted for at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. Some of the vendors have increased their prices. VS, we got our order in before a price increase was coming. Right. I know with Nashville, we were trying to get an order in too. They had a March 1 order, but in talking with the vendor, it looks like we still had some room to work with them. Some of the technology pieces have remained fairly consistent to what we've seen in the past. I mean, last time we bought TV cards were 4 years ago, so they kind of went up a little bit, but really haven't seen any big price spikes yet.
Yeah, I think Chromebooks was the biggest surprise for me when I reviewed our most recent purchase versus purchases, in previous years. I thought because of demand, like, oh, are they going to gouge us? And I was really surprised that the price of the Chromebook has remained fairly consistent throughout all of this pandemic demand. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
If there are no other questions, I will move the second interim.
I'll second.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Josh. Amy, will you please call the vote?
Yes, ma'am. Hope?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Rasa?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
And Jed?
Yes.
Thanks. With that, we'll move on to accept and approve the mathematics placement board policy.
I had the opportunity to present this to you tonight. You have a brief in the packet and the policy itself, and I'm here to field any questions you might have. Most of the policy obviously is driven by legislation, but it's got a little sprinkled bit of Westlake on there to make sure that we're, doing math the way we do math, which is ensuring that it's a non-tracked math experience with the ability for personalization for all of our students at every grade level, 9 through 12. Any questions about the policy or the brief?
John, I don't have any questions on this, but I just realized I neglected to ask you for public comment on the last item. As people, if you're thinking of any questions, would you mind just checking real fast? I'm sorry.
Let's see. No public comments.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any questions for John on this item? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Thanks, Josh. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ashley. Roll call vote, please, Amy.
Yes. Hope?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Shannon? Whoops. Sorry, I went out of whack. Michelle?
Yes.
Vasa?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
And Jed?
Yes.
That brings us to our last action item for tonight, accept and approve facilities use agreement with Natomas Unified School District.
So I did present briefly on this earlier. I'm certainly here to field any questions, thoughts, or concerns, or conversations about it. One thing you will notice about this FUA is it is a 4-year agreement rather than a 5. We thought that was very important because we worked on this as a what happens next agreement, not just what happens. Remember when the original agreement was branded and brought to us from NUSD, their first blush had us going to East Commerce indefinitely. with no conversation about what happens next. And the assumption in the original documentation was that our school would forever fit in the allocated square footage at East Commerce, to which we went through, many iterations, and we've arrived at a place where we said, hey, we think we will fit in there for the first 3 years as juniors. By the time we get to our junior year, but by our senior year, this expires, and we need to be looking at what happens next because we don't think we'll fit in there. So it's a shorter FUA than our typical, but it does have some nice language that says, well, what happens next? If we buy a piece of property, then a future bond potentially passes, then we all have, what comes next in this FUA, which feels good. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns before we move or look for motion? Patel, then.
Oh, I see hands.
Yeah, Patel, then Josh.
A comment and a question. I just wanted to acknowledge John and everyone who worked on this, that you not only were focused on that high school piece, but like you still were thinking of the whole campus. I know how hard we worked to get the shade cover, and we only got one, and we wanted two. And so that was just I was very excited to see that in there. And I was trying to comb through and see if there was anything on like the K-8 side other than what you presented in your slide that was different. And I don't think so, but I just wondered if there was anything that we missed that I might have missed.
A new commitment in the FUA to deferred maintenance, which is an important conversation to have about a building that at the end of the FUA will be roughly, almost a decade old, right? So it's very important for us to be able to say, how are we going to get in the deferred maintenance game? We're very lucky to have NUSD as our authorizers. The partnership is strong. The commitment to this facility is such a gift compared to many of our charter partners around the state. And again, coming to the table and saying, hey guys, just so we're clear, every other Natomas Unified School District public school campus has a shade structure over every playground. And our authorizer said, you're right. That's true. Let's do a shade structure. And we said, hey, it's probably time for deferred maintenance conversation. They said, you're right. Let's put it in there. So, it was a good conversation. But those would be the two differences at the K-8 campus is deferred maintenance and shade structure. Josh?
Yeah, so in reading it, it looks like both sides, if we need to terminate the agreement, is with 12 months notice, correct? But with the district, if they were to terminate it, they have to find a place for us that fits all. Is that correct?
It's a good catch. So the argument is that if we, as Westlake Charter School, bought a building down the street and we wanted to just be like, hey, we're good. We got our own thing. Amy won the lottery. We're fine. We bought a building. Thank you, Amy. Then we can get out of this contract with a given duration of time. However, if NUSD decided they wanted to say, hey, we don't want to do this anymore, we are kicking you out, they are obligated to find us another set of equivalent facilities, right? Because otherwise, what would prevent them from just being like, okay, cool, bye, get out. So yes, that language was crafted in there between during the negotiation process, just so everybody felt comfortable. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
If I win the lottery, my campus comes with dogs.
Dogs, got it. Check. We'll have a dog park, and it'll be the Amy Wells Innovation Center. Got it.
Happy dogs.
Mama Wells.
Mama Wells Innovation Center. Check.
I will have the Wells Innovation Center. With that, if there aren't any questions, is there a motion to approve this agreement?
I'd like to.
After John checks for public comment.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep. Sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Gosh, I unmuted myself and everything. I was so ready, Hope. Kidding.
I know. I'm blowing it tonight.
No public comments, but we did get 2 enrollment packets turned in. So thank you, everybody out there, for turning in your enrollment packets. Welcome to Westlake Charter School.
Yay. Okay, so Nancy, now go.
I'd like to move for the FUA to be approved with NUSD.
Thank you, Nancy. Is that Ashley?
Yes.
Perfect. Sorry. Roll call, please, Amy.
Hope?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Vasa?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
And Jed?
Yes.
With that brings us to future agenda items. John, can you think of anything we have coming up in April off the top of your head?
I'm drawing a blank, but I'm a little tired. Sorry.
It's okay. So April will be a surprise. So that's always fun. Reflection.
Might we have comp by
Hey.
April, finance team? Might we have some comp conversations? Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay,
I don't want to overpromise,
Yeah, okay.
but I think it's certainly possible.
got it.
I'm trying to think if I could go back real fast and look what we did last April, but it was the first month with school being closed, so it's really interesting. John and I typically, just to have some insight, will go back to the previous year's agenda for that month to make sure we don't miss anything. And now we're going to have this great void of 2020, so it's just going to be very interesting strategically
Right.
moving forward. But oh yes, and yes, Mama Wells, please don't forget to submit your Form 700 to her by April 1st. We don't institute the penalty that many DA's offices do, so just we're on the honor system at Westlake because we know you'll all do it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll do my best to either answer those or send you on to the FPPC for guidance. So let's reflect. I'm going to go Vasa, then Steve.
I reflect on, I loved our first celebrations, reflecting over the course of the last year and, all the ways in which Westlake has come together to make this as successful as we could this last year. And then big shout out to the FUA. I know we've had some discussions where things weren't looking as like they were shaping up how we wanted them. And John and Steve worked really hard to ensure that FUA worked out in the best interest of our students and our community. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Vasa. Steve, and then Sean.
I think the piece tonight about looking back last year at this time, we've worked through a kind of reflection, action, transformation process and a few different things down, reflecting back on what was going on a year ago and some of the actions we are currently taking as we come back to school and how that may transform things going forward, what things we continue to carry forward and maybe do a little bit differently. So just kind of thinking about that in the process that we're working on now.
Thanks, Steve. Sean, and then Shannon.
So I will reflect on the fact that I don't like being late to meetings, just slightly less than I don't like making the meetings at all. But with a busy day volunteering at the COVID thing, and then I had a back to school academic planning thing for my older boys, and then this, it's been a very busy and productive day despite a little bit of overlap.
Thanks, Sean. I'm glad you made it. Shannon, and then Nancy.
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting to hear the lottery update and to see how well and how smoothly that went in this setting, and just exciting to have the first high school lottery underway. And it's very real now, even though it's been real, but it feels weird to have real and exciting things at this time right now. So that, and then I'll just comment in again, the interest of us looking back over this past year. This also could have been my celebration, but the commitment of this board, and like you said, the relationships with NUSD and how lucky we are in all of that, the thoughtfulness, and just, again, in getting us vaccinated and getting all the teachers vaccinated before they go back on campus and making sure everyone is safe. And just, I, again, will thank you that, I'm excited to see my family for the first time in 18 months sooner than, I would have because of this board. So, thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Nancy, and then Michelle.
So my reflection is thankful for everyone on the board to prepare for meetings like this. I will very much admit to looking at the board agenda and having a little bit of not anxiety and dread, but just knowing that some days are longer than others, and just the anticipation of some very deep subject matter and conversations. So I am also always appreciative of the board who is willing to do their homework beforehand and have their questions ready, and so that we can pass things like 15-page FUAs that have taken over 15, 18 months to get through. So thank you, everyone, for your hard work.
Thanks, Nancy. Michelle, and then Josh.
The first reflection is that I really need to figure out what's happening, because I'm just talking to icons and not people right now. So I will work on that for next time. But today's agenda and all of the things we went through, to me, like the whole meeting just spoke to how much work is being done on behalf of Westlake's families and students, and it's just amazing. I felt like we got a lot of business done today, and in a pretty decent amount of time as well. So again, thank you for those who prepared everything and made it really easy for us to find and read, and really appreciate all the work going on.
Thanks, Michelle. Josh, and then John.
Yeah, I just want to reflect the good stuff. Looking back, over the year, things have been crazy to say the least, and the amount of heavy lifting that John and his team have done. Rolling out distance learning. We started with an interim budget that was in the red because we had high school expenses with no corresponding revenue. We've remained nimble, and now we're looking at being in the black. We've got a high school staff. We're, growing our staff with just fantastic educators whose qualifications, it sounds like, are off the charts. And we're doing all of this during a pandemic while we're building the airplane while it's in mid-flight. And I just want to take a second and just let it sink in for a minute. What's happened here? We've got a high school coming. It didn't stop the high school. It didn't stop anything. We just made everything better. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And John, thank you to you and your team.
Thanks, Josh. Solid. Well, the team's on the screen right now, and that's my reflection. Hope is that gratitude affects attitude, and the way that we appreciate is partly the way that we work. And when I listen to this board meeting tonight, and I listen to everyone on this screen and the way that everyone utilizes gratitude, it makes me really proud to be a part of this board and this organization. You may not know it. I know you're all our lead volunteers. You may not realize your impact, each of you on this screen, but since we started doing board meetings on YouTube, our staff have become board watchers. They've been watching the board meetings for the first time in the almost decade that I've been here. And I cannot tell you how many of our staff members hear the way that you all speak. And so my reflection is my reflection is that the power of appreciation and gratitude is just echoes from this board and is felt throughout the entire organization. And the fire that people feel about going back to work on Monday and bringing kids back in, it started in this boardroom 2 weeks ago at a special meeting. And so thank you. That's my reflection, is that your ability to share your gratitude fuels the community that's boots on the ground here. So thank you all for doing what you do, but thank you for the way that you do it.
Thanks, John. Jed, and then Ashley.
Just excited about this facilities use agreement. So congrats and really terrific work.
Thanks, Jed. Ashley, and then Amy, you're going to reflect tonight.
So much good stuff. My first thought was the FUA, and then when Vasa said that, I thought all the work, and I think every iteration of reflection that I had was spoken on the screen. I definitely, Nancy was with you. I was like, pull your bootstraps up. This is a big packet. It's a long night. And I look back at my time and I'm like, wait, did my phone die? What, is that right? So yeah, just so much appreciation for this board. And, special call out to Steve and John. Steve, with the budget, just no stone unturned. You're so educated. And I think half the stuff you talked about was not stuff you were ever educated on because it didn't even exist. It became an existent thing through COVID, and you know all the things, and you like I think it was Josh that said put us in a place of green because of that, and we are so lucky for that. But also John, I live very close by, if some of you don't know, and I've driven home late evenings and seen 2 lonesome cars and 2 lonesome nights. They work late. They work long hours, and they never forget about our kiddos and our staff. And I think it was really evident in how much work, and all huge projects and all different from each other, was brought up tonight. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley. Amy?
I will reflect on the, we do need a song like that, Sean. I will reflect on the mathematics policy. When Emily first talked about the mathematics program, you all remember I made a really big blubbering Oprah cry on YouTube, which is out there for the rest of my life. But that policy, I read it because I wanted to see what it was. And she speaks the same words in that policy that she spoke to us that night. And it was about personalizing mathematics and making sure that kids have the supports that they had to be successful, and just having some meat in a mathematics program, which is fabulous, but also having the backbone for the kids to support them as they go through the math program, which I think is just huge. So I'm reflecting on math, which I never, ever thought I would say out loud.
Josh has a hand up.
Yep.
Sorry, I just thought of one more thing. We got a talent show tomorrow from 6 to 8. Don't forget to check out the talent show. These kids are awesome. I've been to a number of them. The kids are fantastic. Check it out. It's going to be a good time.
I got to preview it today. It's epic. I'm just leaving it at that.
Do you sing in it, John?
Just skip the first 3 minutes. Everything else is epic. Yeah, I might do an opening number with Kim Erickson. Let's just skip that.
Just maybe.
Maybe. But what's fascinating about a virtual talent show, sorry to birdwalk, but you can do talent acts that you couldn't do on stage. When a kid does a card trick on stage, you're like, I don't get it. But when a kid does a card trick right here, so it's really interesting. Through innovation, we're seeing, oh, this works. There's kids doing things that on screen they couldn't have done on stage. So watch the talent show. It's 1 hour and 20 minutes. Grab a bucket of popcorn. Other than the first 3 minutes, it's brilliant.
Well, I have to imagine it's even more accessible, right? For that reason, the kids who have stage fright can do something and they can show unique talent. So I think actually this method of talent show screams Westlake.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. So it's one of those adaptions that just fits in with us. So my reflection actually is going to be on the fact that this actually maybe felt like a semi-normal board meeting, and how much less anxiety I personally felt, because the big decisions, and by big decisions, I mean, obviously all our decisions are big, but the reopening decision that's been weighing on us now for 12 months is decided. And I think that's huge, not only for us, but also for our families and our staff who at least have this plan. And listening to John, you present, and knowing that I've shared a lot of your materials with other teachers I'm friends with who feel like they're stranded in their schools without any assistance. But we're doing what charters are meant to do. Like, this meeting points out that we're innovating, that we are setting that example. And so this whole meeting tonight, I've just been really thankful and reflective of that. So, Josh, your hand's just still up, right? Do you have another? No, okay, just want to make sure. And with that, John, do you have any other closing comments?
No, ma'am, and I see no comments in the email.
Perfect. And so I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 8:13.